My fiancé cheated on me with my cousin, so I gave them a honeymoon they'd never forget. I am Natalie, 29 years old, and the diamond ring on my finger was supposed to mark the happiest chapter of my life. After 3 years of dating, Brandon had proposed on a misty afternoon in Asheville, right at the overlook where we'd taken our first trip together. I'd cried, said yes, and posted the engagement selfie with shaking hands. But just beneath the surface of that moment, something had been off. It wasn't the proposal, it was the way he kept glancing back toward the car, where my cousin Talia had stayed behind. Talia was complicated. We'd grown up almost like sisters, except she was always the center of attention. She was bold, charming, quick with a joke, and had a bad habit of borrowing things that didn't belong to her. I used to think she didn't mean harm by it. Clothes, my favorite lipstick, even friends. But something about the way she hugged Brandon after the proposal, whispering something into his ear as she held him a beat too long, stuck in my mind. Still, I brushed it off. I wanted to believe in the fantasy. I wanted to believe that the man I loved, the one who made me tea when I had migraines, who rubbed my feet after long shifts, wouldn't betray me, and that my own blood wouldn't either. That illusion began to crack a few weeks later at my parents' backyard BBQ. Brandon and Talia were laughing together near the cooler, her hand resting lightly on his arm. When I walked over, they jolted apart. Brandon offered me a beer like nothing had happened. I smiled, but inside something twisted. It was like my gut tapped me on the shoulder and whispered, "Pay attention." I did. From that day on, I started watching them more carefully. I didn't like what I saw, the quick glances, the sudden silences when I entered a room. The inside jokes they swore weren't about me. Still, I said nothing. I didn't want to be that woman. Jealous, insecure, controlling, but deep down, I knew something was wrong. But before I tell you how I ruined their dream honeymoon and exposed everything in the most poetic way possible, let me know where you're watching from and hit subscribe if you've ever had to pretend everything was fine, because you have no idea what I was about to uncover once I stopped pretending. It happened on a random Tuesday night, one of those evenings where Brandon claimed he had to work late, and Talia had just dropped by to help me with some invitation designs. We were sitting at my kitchen counter, wine glasses, half full laptop open, when she excused herself to use the bathroom. I thought nothing of it until my phone buzzed. A familiar number, Brandon's. At first I ignored it. Then it buzzed again and again. Finally, I picked it up not to answer, but to see the message preview. Still thinking about last night. Meet again soon. My stomach dropped. I opened the message. It was from Brandon. Sent not to me, but to Talia. I froze. My ears were ringing. I quietly stood, heart pounding, and walked toward the hallway. The bathroom door was closed, and I could hear her in there giggling, talking in a whisper. I stepped closer. She has no idea, Talia said, and then paused. No, I'll delete it, relax. I'm not stupid. Her voice was low, breathy, the tone she used when she flirted. My hands shook. The wine glass in my grip tightened like a vice. I slowly backed away before she opened the door. When she came out, her expression was cool and effortless. "Everything okay?" she asked, tucking her hair behind her ear like it was just another Tuesday. I smiled, my lips stiff. "Yeah, just tired." I lied through my teeth and kept playing the part of the clueless fiancé. We even finished the mock-up of the RSVP cards together. She left with a hug. I sat down in silence, stared at my phone, and scrolled through old messages between Brandon and me, wondering how many were sent before or after he saw her. It all started making sense, the late nights. The way they avoided eye contact when we were all in a room. The sudden switch from being casual friends to weirdly formal around each other. I didn't confront them, not yet. I needed more than whispers and a message preview. I needed evidence. I needed something undeniable. So I started watching, listening, waiting. I wasn't going to lose my fiancé or my pride, not without a plan. 3 weeks before the wedding, I found it. We were rushing out the door to meet my parents for brunch, and Brandon couldn't find his phone. Typical. While he was in the shower, I rifled through the pockets of his blazer tossed over the chair. No phone, but something else slid out when I turned the inside pocket, a hotel key card. At first, I thought maybe it was old, left over from his cousin's wedding last month. But when I flipped it over, the name of the hotel glared back at me like a neon sign from Hell Mariner's Bay Suites, a place barely 10 minutes from our apartment, a place we'd never stayed together. I checked the date scribbled in pen on a small sticker 2 nights ago. I don't remember breathing. I do remember how still everything became. The sound of the water running behind the bathroom door, The smell of his stupid peppermint body washed the way sunlight filtered through the curtains, like nothing had changed, even though everything had. I slipped the keycard into my pocket. By the time Brandon came out, towel around his waist, all sheepish smiles and jokes about his lost phone, I was already smiling again, too. I told him I found it in the couch cushions. We kissed. He never knew. That night, I used the keycard. I dressed in jeans and a hoodie and drove alone to the hotel. I had no idea what I was going to do, but my chest was burning. When I reached the front desk, I said I'd left something behind in the suite. The receptionist glanced at the keycard, then back at me, then nodded. Suite 409. I rode the elevator up and stepped into a room that smelled faintly of cologne and floral perfume. 2 used wine glasses sat on the table, a red thong balled up beneath the edge of the bed, and on the dresser, a receipt. Room service for 2, breakfast, champagne, strawberries, charged to Brandon's card. I didn't cry, not even when I stood in the middle of that perfectly clean betrayal. Instead, I took pictures, every angle, every item. I even picked up the thong with a tissue and bagged it like evidence. If they were going to play dirty, I'd play smarter. I left that room with shaking hands and the beginnings of an idea so wickedly satisfying it made me smile. The next morning, Brandon brewed coffee like nothing had happened. He hummed under his breath shirtless in the kitchen, acting like the man who hadn't just shared a hotel bed with my cousin. I slid into the stool across from him and gave him my best smile. "Hey, did you go to Mariners Bay this week?" He blinked. "What?" "No. Why found a hotel keycard in your jacket pocket?" Thought maybe it was an old one. He froze just for a second, a blink, a twitch in his jaw, and then laughed. "Oh, that, yeah. That was from work. We had that vendor meeting, remember?" I said. "You never mentioned a hotel." Brandon looked up from his mug expression, softening in that way I'd once found reassuring. "Babe, are you okay? You've been, I don't know, a little stressed lately?" There it was, the classic deflection. "I just want to make sure I'm not missing anything," I said, keeping my tone light. "Because it's weird, right? A solo hotel night. Champagne, strawberries." He chuckled nervously. "Come on, Nat. You're really reading into this. You know I'd never cheat on me." I finished holding his gaze. He went pale. "I didn't say that." "No," I said slowly. But I did. He walked around the counter and cupped my face in his hands. "You know I love you, right? Don't let your imagination screw this up. You're overthinking it. Maybe once I would have believed that. But now I saw right through it. So I leaned into his touch, nodded gently, and kissed him. Then I excused myself to get dressed and locked the bathroom door behind me. I didn't cry. I stared at myself in the mirror and whispered, "You already know the truth." My hands still smelled like the hotel soap. I clutched the phone in my hand and stared at the photos I'd taken. I wasn't going to confront him again. I was going to let him marry me, because I had a better plan. I'd let him walk down the aisle, say the vows, smile for the photos, take the honeymoon tickets, and then I'd give them a wedding gift they'd never forget. From that day on, I became the perfect fiancé. I played the role so well, even I started to believe it sometimes. I complimented Brandon on his tie choices, tagged him in sappy Instagram posts, and made small talk with Talia like I didn't know she was sharing my bed indirectly. We went to cake tastings, met with the florist, and sat through seating chart arguments with my mother. I smiled through all of it. But in the background, I was booking something very different. See, Brandon had surprised me with his honeymoon plans a few weeks earlier, all-inclusive resort in Bora Bora, overwater bungalow, 7 nights of tropical bliss. I wanted us to relax, he'd said, grinning like he wasn't a liar. What he didn't know was that I called the resort later that night. And with a few tweaks and a decent tip to a very amused concierge, I customized every part of that trip to fit my new agenda. I knew they'd go together. I wanted them to go together. Because while he thought he'd be sipping cocktails and basking in post-wedding bliss with my cousin in secret, I was turning their dream honeymoon into a living luxury-coated nightmare. I changed the name on the reservation from mine to Talia's. I pre-authorized a private welcome message in the room that said, "To the happy couple may betrayal always feel this warm." I swapped their breakfast in bed options for the most awkward combinations possible. Anchovy omelets and prune smoothies, anyone, and scheduled a series of couples activities, trust falls partner truth sessions, and worst of all, a daily 8 a.m. couples karaoke in front of strangers. Each room was pre-stocked with framed photos of me, graduation photos, smiling selfies. A huge canvas of Brandon and me at our engagement shoot hung directly above the bed. The best part, I left them a gift card in the room. a simple envelope inside a USB drive. And on that drive, a highlight reel, edited by yours truly, audio recorded from Talia's whisper behind my bathroom door, screenshots of texts, and even a hotel bill with their names on it all set to romantic piano music. I had it scheduled to autoplay on the room's smart TV the moment they checked in. I wasn't just exposing them, I was curating their shame. I used to dream about my wedding day, the dress, the music, the way Brandon would look at me when I walked down the aisle. And I got all of that, just not for the reasons I imagined. The morning of the wedding, I slipped into my gown, ivory satin fitted bodice, delicate lace sleeves. My mother cried when she saw me. My bridesmaids squealed. Talia, she wore smug like perfume. She fluttered around in her dusty rose dress like she hadn't been sleeping with the groom. She avoided my eyes, though. Good. Brandon was calm, too calm. He kissed my cheek at the first look and whispered, "We made it, babe." I almost laughed. The ceremony was beautiful. My father walked me down the aisle. Brandon beamed. We exchanged vows under a canopy of eucalyptus and white roses. No one knew that every word Brandon spoke felt like venom dripping into my ears. I said I do with a smile so serene you'd think I was the happiest woman alive. But I wasn't marrying him. Not really. I was burying him. At the reception, I played my part until the last possible moment. I gave a short thank you speech that had the crowd in tears. And then, like a good little bride, I raised my glass for a final toast. To love, I said, lifting the champagne flute, and to truth even when it hurts. Because sometimes the greatest gift a woman can give is letting people show you who they really are. Some clapped. Talia froze. Brandon blinked. They didn't know that was the start of the countdown. As the night wound down, I hugged my parents goodbye, kissed my bridesmaids, and smiled for one last photo with Talia, both of us perfectly posed, perfectly fake. Brandon and I got into the car that would take us to the airport. I handed him the envelope with the plane tickets, the itinerary, and the honeymoon confirmation. "Everything's taken care of," I said sweetly. "Enjoy." He kissed my hand. "You're incredible." I smiled. He had no idea just how incredible I was about to be. The next day, while they were 30,000 feet in the air, en route to Bora Bora, I was curled up on the couch in yoga pants with my best friend Sarah, sipping wine and waiting for the first call. I didn't have to wait long. My phone buzzed around 9:17 p.m. international number. I let it ring out. They'd landed. Somewhere in the tropics, Brandon and Talia were stepping into the most lavish suite the resort had to offer, a floating paradise I had paid for. But what they walked into wasn't champagne and roses. It was me. Photos of me smiling, laughing. One giant canvas of our engagement shoot with Brandon's fake promises frozen in time. A welcome letter addressed to Mr. and Mrs. Karma, inviting them to a pre-scheduled week of humiliating bonding activities. A mini fridge stocked only with beets, prune juice, and raw garlic. And of course, the pièce de résistance, the TV, flickering to life as they unpacked, playing my carefully edited video montage. Talia's voice whispering behind the bathroom door. Brandon's texts. A voiceover of me narrating the whole thing in calm, icy tones like a nature documentary. I imagined their faces when the screen faded to black and displayed the message, "Enjoy the view. You earned it." Sarah and I howled with laughter. By the next morning, Brandon's texts went from "WTF is this" to "We need to talk. This isn't funny." Then came the emails, the desperate ones, pleading. I ignored them. Talia sent a string of voice notes I didn't bother opening. One of them was just 10 seconds of her shrieking, "You psycho?" I took that as a compliment. On the resort's official Instagram page, I watched their tagged photos disappear. Their smiling selfies gone. I heard through the grapevine, a bridesmaid who followed one of Talia's influencer friends, that the resort staff refused to refund them, citing a non-refundable custom booking. Brandon and Talia were stuck there, awkwardly sharing a bed under a framed photo of my smiling face. I almost felt bad. Almost. But then I remembered what betrayal tastes like: strawberry-smeared room service trays for two and hotel keycards tucked in blazer pockets. And I toasted the universe. By day 2 of their honeymoon, things started to spiral. According to another friend, Kendra, who had mutuals with Talia's influencer circle, whispers were circulating in group chats. Something had happened on the trip. Talia had canceled a sponsored post last minute. Brandon's Instagram, normally filled with gym selfies and motivational captions, had gone completely dark. Meanwhile, I kept checking the resort's live webcam. It overlooked the beachside dining area, And there they were sitting as far apart as the wicker chairs would allow. Talia wore sunglasses the size of dinner plates, clearly hiding swollen eyes. Brandon looked like he hadn't slept. I'd done well. Every day, the concierge, per my instructions, greeted them with a daily love challenge. On day 2, it was a blindfolded truth-telling game by the pool. Day 3 was a cooking class where they had to feed each other while being quizzed about how they met. I would have paid good money to see how they answered that one. Their suite received nightly romantic deliveries from a mystery admirer, petty maybe, but it felt earned. Dozens of fake love notes from Natalie penned in cursive on scented paper. One read, "Thanks for keeping him warm. I needed to see how low you'd both go." By day 4, I heard Talia was refusing to leave the room. Brandon had apparently tried to book a new hotel, but their shared cards were locked frozen by me the morning of their flight. That's when the video hit TikTok. Someone at the resort, a staff member or maybe another guest, recorded Talia screaming at Brandon in the lobby. It wasn't crystal clear, but a few words made it through. "She set us up and you said she wouldn't find out." The video exploded. Overnight, Talia's Instagram comments flooded with questions. Her influencer partnerships started to quietly disappear. Brandon's gym dropped him as a brand ambassador. And I was back home sipping iced coffee, watching it all unfold like a private movie I'd produced myself. Poetic justice doesn't always come with violence. Sometimes it arrives in the form of a 5-star hellscape carefully planned by the woman you underestimated. I knew it was only a matter of time before the family got involved. The call started with my mother. "Natalie, what exactly happened?" she asked, her voice half concerned, half horrified. "Brandon's mother is saying you planned some kind of trap on their honeymoon." I didn't even blink. Did she mention her son sleeping with my cousin before the wedding? Silence. And then quietly, "No." "Then tell her to sit down." Word spread like wildfire. Talia's mother, my aunt, was furious. She left me a voicemail, calling me cruel, calculating, and a vindictive little brat. I saved that one. Might use it as a ringtone someday. Meanwhile, the video had taken a life of its own. Comments ranged from, "This is the ultimate power move," to "She's my spirit animal." One creator stitched it with, "Ladies, this is how you deal with a cheater." I didn't post anything myself. I didn't need to. The footage, the whispers, the sudden disappearance of their social media presence, it all worked better than anything I could have posted. Talia, the aspiring lifestyle influencer, lost 3 brand deals within days. Her comments were full of fire emojis, popcorn gifs, and merciless callouts. "Cheaters never win, babe." "Where's Natalie's wedding registry? I want to send her a gift." Brandon, for his part, tried to do damage control. He emailed me, long paragraphs, apologies. He said he panicked, that it meant nothing, that he was confused, and Talia came on to him. I forwarded it all to my lawyer. Not because I needed legal protection, but because I wanted it all documented. Every lie, every excuse. And then came the group text. From Talia to the whole extended family, Natalie humiliated us and turned her wedding into a personal revenge circus. "She needs help," I responded with one sentence. "You should have thought about that before climbing into my bed, figuratively and literally." That was the last time she tried to contact me. I could feel the tectonic plates of our family shifting. Some relatives picked sides, some stayed silent. A few cousins reached out privately to say they admired me, that they wished they had the courage to do what I did. Turns out the truth doesn't just burn bridges, it lights bonfires. In the weeks that followed, my life didn't fall apart. It bloomed. I moved out of the apartment I shared with Brandon. Not in a rush, not in a fury, just calmly packed my things, hired movers, and handed the keys to a leasing agent like I was shedding a borrowed costume. I rented a small but beautiful place across town, filled with sunlight, quiet mornings, and absolutely no lies. Sarah came over the first night with takeout and a bottle of wine. We sat on the floor surrounded by unpacked boxes and laughed until our faces hurt. Not just because of the honeymoon stunt, but because I felt light, free, seen. Brandon. He tried for weeks to reach me. Texts, emails, even a handwritten letter. The last one was particularly pathetic. He claimed I blindsided him, said I'd weaponized his mistake, and that we could have worked through it. Classic. I never replied. Talia went radio silent. She stopped showing up at family events. I heard she moved back in with her mom temporarily, which made things awkward for both sides of the family. Her influencer reputation was wrecked. No brand wanted to touch the cheater cousin from TikTok. As for my parents, they stood by me. Eventually, my mom admitted she never liked how close Brandon and Talia were, but she didn't want to make waves. My dad, once skeptical of my quiet strength, hugged me tighter than he had in years and whispered, "You handled this better than I ever could have." But here's the best part. I didn't just move on. I leveled up. I launched a podcast, Burn the Guest List, where I interviewed people who survived betrayals and came out stronger. The response was overwhelming. Messages from listeners poured in thanking me for turning pain into power. I didn't share every detail. I never named names, but they knew. And when I got a message one afternoon from an unknown number, just 3 words, "You really won," I knew it was from Brandon. I smiled. Because he was right. Months passed, seasons changed, and with every sunrise that didn't include Brandon or Talia's shadow, I found more peace. It wasn't about revenge anymore, not really. That part had served its purpose. What stayed with me was the clarity, the strength I never knew I had until they tried to break me. The realization that love isn't proven in grand gestures or diamond rings. It's proven in respect, in truth, in loyalty when no one's watching. I reconnected with myself, went back to therapy, picked up hobbies I'd let slip during wedding madness. I started learning French just because I could. I planted a tiny herb garden on my windowsill. My world got smaller, but also more honest, more mine. And then one rainy Tuesday, a package arrived at my door. No return address. I opened it cautiously, half expecting something dramatic. But inside was a simple black velvet pouch. A ring, my engagement ring. Alongside it, a note in tight, apologetic handwriting. "I thought you might want this back. You earned it more than I ever did." No name. But I knew. I stared at it for a long time before closing the box and dropping it off at the nearest pawn shop the next day. I didn't need it, not for memory, not for closure, not for proof. I'd already turned the worst day of my life into the best decision I ever made. And somewhere out there, 2 people who thought they could betray me without consequence are still trying to scrub their names off the internet. I don't hate them anymore, but I'll never forget them. Because they taught me the most important truth of all. Sometimes the best way to love yourself is to let go of everything and everyone that ever made you feel small. And if you can do it with style, even better. Have you ever been betrayed by someone you trusted the most and realized the moment you stopped forgiving was the moment you finally became free? Because if this story hit close to home, you're not alone. I want to hear from you. Tell me in the comments, what was the moment you knew it was time to stop pretending? If my journey resonated with you, please like, subscribe, and share it with someone who needs to hear that it's okay to define success, closure, and self-worth on your terms, even if that means walking away from people who never deserved you in the first place. Revenge stories aren't just about making others pay. The real revenge is becoming the version of yourself they never thought you could be: happy, healed, unbothered. To everyone who's ever felt betrayed, humiliated, or silenced, I see you. I was you. And I promise there's life and joy beyond the wreckage. And if you ever get the chance to turn your pain into purpose, take it, light it up, and walk away smiling. Because sometimes the honeymoon they stole from you becomes the life you build without them.